Welcome back to Stamping at the Warren. I'm Kim Tolton, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do a watercolour technique. This particular card I have coloured the stag or moose in using a blender pen technique, but I'm actually going to show you how to do it with aqua pen instead today, but it's the same card design that I'm using. And I'm using a combination of 3 stamp sets. So the first one is Lovely as a Tree, beautiful. I've got it in wood mount, comes in clear as well, but I use it so much, as you will see by the state of my stamps. The second one is for the Sentiment, which is from the 6 Sayings, which is a hostess stamp set, so you can only order this if you put in a qualifying order, and that can be online or at a workshop. And then the other one is Wilderness Awaits, which is just a beautiful stamp set, and because I live rurally, this is particularly poignant for me. So that's what we're doing today. Now, your first job, as always, make your card base, thicker Whisper White cardstock, trimmed to 21 centimeters by 14.8 centimeters, score down the middle at 10.5 centimeters, fold so that that ridge is inside the card, and then burnish with your bone folder, and that can be put to one side until we finish the card so it doesn't get contaminated by inks and the such like. Next, you want a piece of just regular Whisper White cardstock measuring 14 centimeters by 7.9 centimeters, and this is the piece of cardstock that we're going to be working with today. Now, you normally you would use watercolor cardstock for watercolor type techniques, but the Whisper White, so long as you're not going to get the cardstock soaked, or then you can use the Whisper White cardstock for both blender pen and aqua painter techniques. So let's get started, because there's quite a lot to get through in 15 minutes. So to begin with, we're going to stamp the trees, and that's using basic grey. And this is one of the new archival ink pads, so you need to be sure that you clean this immediately after you finish making your card with Stays On stamp cleaner. And this I'm just going to slightly offset so it's not fully taking up that width of the card, and just pop that down. I love this one because you get the ground and everything onto it. So that's your first stamp. Second stamp is using always artichoke. So predominantly I'm using Regal's ink pad, so you could just order the whole ink set, if you like. So you buy all of the ink pads in one batch, and it does work out considerably cheaper to do it that way than buying them all separately. So you want one tree on the left for your front foreground, and then just ink up the top section of that tree, and you just want that offset at the bottom. And you do need to be using either archival basic black or archival basic grey ink pads for stamping the actual stamp, because how it works is it prevents ink from bleeding out from the centre, from the boundary of the stamp. If you use ordinary inks with the Whisper White cardstock and the stamp, you'll find that the colour leaches out. Right, so next job is to stamp your Sentiment, which we're doing in, again, the basic black. So you just want that going along underneath, down and up, so that's just underneath your Sentiment, underneath your trees rather, and then your stag or your moose, whatever. I think it depends in which country you live in. It will be a different thing. In the Nordic regions, I'm sure it would be a reindeer. And then you want this right at the very bottom in here. There you go. And whilst I give that a couple of minutes to dry, we're just going to do a small bit of sponging. The main colour, two main colours will be Always Artichoke and Island Indigo, with a little bit of crushed curry. And I just use different edges of my sponge, so this is 1/4 of a stamping sponge. So begin with, and I should have my ink pads the other way around so I can see what they are. So they've got their little name tags on here. So start with the Island Indigo. You just want really residual ink, and just go all the way around the edges. So it's just very subtle. Obviously this sort of gives the sky effect. Just very small circles. And then you just want to go over where the trees are, just to add a little of extra colour there. Bring it down to the sentiment, and then rotate your sponge round. You can just cut it into 6 segments or 8 segments, whatever chooses you. And I'm just using a very small amount of crushed curry to add a little yellow into the sky, and I think I'll go back over that with a little Island Indigo, just to tone it down a little bit there. And that will lighten as it gets as it dries. And then the last little bit of sponging is with the Always Artichokes ink pad. No, that's not always. It's here under my nose, look. So, and the reason I rub off on scrap cardstock or scrap, I'm using grid paper here, is just so it's a little less likely to give you harsh finish to your sponging. Okay, and that's all that you need in terms of sponging. Now we get to the main job of the day. So the colours that we will be working with is soft suede, and what you have to do, I should have shown you first, squidge your ink pad, open it, and once it's open, this is your well here, just like if you're using inks at school. I don't know if they do anymore. And the other colour is Cajun Craze, which I left in my colour caddy. So again, I've already squidged this one, and then all you need to do is just get a little drop of water into the well, and then pick up some colour. And the main thing we're working on is the moose, and start by going around the boundary. So you're following the line of the stamp, and you just pick up extra ink as you need it. And you'll notice the difference between the two cards at the end, because this will be a less intense. And how I tend to use this is by not actually going to the very edges of the stamped line, and that way you are less likely to get ink accidentally leaking out. And just keep following that round, and you can just keep adding colour as you need to. You can learn, you know, controls. You can get, as you can see, you can go for thick lines, and then you can actually very light touch and get much finer lines. And it's like anything, it just takes a little bit of practice. So that's the first colour done there, and by the time we've closed this up and bring in the soft suede, you'll be ready. Now I'm not putting another drop of water on here because we've actually got enough water for the moment. And again, just go around the boundary, and what you're going to do is just leave about a millimetre's edge between where you're colouring, where you're painting, and the edge of the stamp, and that will create the light and shade, so the shadows and the highlights. You obviously want a bit more brown going down into the legs. They are naturally darker, and already I can feel that the cardstock has dried off. I'm using soft suede in the bottom here as well. And then you can add extra colour just for, so the more colour you put on, the more intense the colours will build up. And then I'm just going to follow the lines of the stamps for the highlight area, so you can see wherever there's little lines, you know, so the hard work's done for you really. You just add colour over the top of those highlights that are all already on the stamp for you, and just add some texture in, and then finally around the face. Just take the excess colour off, and then the last thing I'm going to do is with Sahara sand, if I can find it. There it is. And I've done it again. So we just want that well, and this is a really light neutral tone. And what I'm doing here is just applying a little colour outside of the stamp, using that Sahara sand, and this will give you some more highlights to your image. And just some outside of that stamp up here around him, around his face, and then finally in those antlers. Just one little bit right the way around the edge there. And there you are, that's the colouring done. And all that remains is to mat that onto a piece of always artichoke cardstock. I'm using fast fuse, and you can see that the colour has started to come through the other side a little bit, and that's quite natural. And what's quite nice when you work on Whisper White cardstock is where the card gets a little bit wet here, it's not wet, it shouldn't be soggy, it's just a little damp. You actually get a bit of texture to the card there, which is really nice because it gives extra, it just gives some extra interest to the card. And then the very last job, my fast fuse has just run out. So take the cassette off, take this bit out, that's the actual cassette, remove that, and then I've got the new one over here, because I've always got one ready and waiting. And all you do is match up your little dot and your big dot. Says she. No, that is the right way. There you go. And then the casing goes back down, but you do want to remove any excess glue that is around the entrance, and then the cassette goes back on and we should be ready to, yeah, rock and roll again already. So down, flick, down, flick, down, flick, and that then goes onto your card base, and there you have it. That's your card. So there you can see, this will dry lighter, but there you can see that there is a slight difference, but not hugely. I think that the aqua painter is a little quicker than using a blender pen, which takes you a little bit longer because it's a fine point, but both of them work really well. So I hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial. I'd love to see your versions. And join me again tomorrow. If you'd like to visit my blog, it's www.stampingatthewarren.blogspot.co.uk, and if you look in the further information below this video, you'll find all of my social media accounts, and just click on the ones that you want. And if you'd like to join my Pinterest community board, I'd love to see you there. Speak to you later. Bye for now.